Welcome to Millennium Counseling Center's podcast, where each week we go in depth into all things mental health, addiction recovery, and being our healthiest and happiest self. Enjoy. This week's episode will be hosted by one of the many incredible therapists here at the Millennium Counseling Center. Please enjoy.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Dating in Your 20s. We're here with Amelia and Lilly. It's kind of weird not having a guest. I feel like we've had guests for the last 3 episodes. So I'm glad that it's just the two of us. So I can't wait to catch up. I feel like we haven't talked about dating in forever.
So exciting. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. I've loved all of the guest episodes. Check them out if you haven't. But yeah, I'm happy to get back on our regular scheduled programming.
Yeah.
Thing about today.
Putting yourself out there, specifically though, with a therapeutic take and from a female lens, because I think in heterosexual relationships, there's this idea, it's embedded in patriarchy. We think that we need a white knight who's going to reach out to us first and make all the first moves. And so now that we're in the modern dating world, I think it's so hard to actually wrestle with the idea that we do have to put ourselves out there and it doesn't feel natural or normal. But I have an example.
You sort of mentioned this, but where did you find yourself last week?
Okay, for the listeners, me and Lilly probably talk every day, all day, but I have not told her anything about this because I want her authentic reaction on the pod.
Here we go.
Was it last week or the week before? I went to a singles event. It was a pop-up for a company here in Chicago. It was listed as a singles event. I did pay for it.
Okay.
And it was at a bar in the West Loop. And I'm going to be so honest. I went in with zero expectations. I went with a group of girlfriends and I was talked into it majorly. And I was like, I'm going to go as research for my podcast. And that's literally it.
That's the text I got. That's the only thing I know about this day.
No, I was like, and that way if someone asks, why are you here? I can say, I really thought about bringing our mini mics and being I'm just going to interview people. That way, I don't have to. But then I was like, no, put yourself out there, basically. And I'm going to do this.
Set the scene. Set the scene.
Okay. So me and my friend Jenna, we get there and it's at Recess. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Recess, but it's a really big, open, almost warehouse looking bar. We walk in and the bouncer checks our IDs and all things. And then he goes, what event are you here for? Immediate shame because I'm I have to tell this person that I'm here for a singles event. I don't know why there's already called.
Well, I guess we don't, but was it really promoted as a singles event?
Yes. Okay. The West Loop singles event put on by this company. And I don't know why there was just inherent shame immediately. Had not even walked in the door. And so we tell him and he's like, awesome, you're in the back corner. We go to the back corner and we showed up 45 minutes late. Okay.
Obviously. Are you kidding me? For sure. I would have to do that.
No, there's 12 people in this.
Okay.
Lily. I'm I'm so proud of these 12 people who showed up, but I'm ready to go. I'm not doing this.
Proud of yourself for showing up too.
Yes, I was. But there's all these other little corporate events going on around us, and they're such cute guys. And I'm we should have gone to that event. What's going on over here? And so the girl who's throwing this event, who works at this company, comes up to us and is put on your name tag. And I was Jenna, our one armor right now is that we don't have to put on a name tag. Once we put on a name tag, we're solidifying that we're here for this singles event, whatever. And she's let's just go grab a drink. I wasn't drinking that night. And so I was I'm just going to get a Diet Coke. I'm going to be so great. This is going to be such a night. I'm literally talking myself into it. We end up running into one of our friends who we've been out in the West Loop with before. And she comes up to us and she's like, oh my God, guys, there's a singles event tonight. Did you know people literally paid money to show up here for that group in the back corner? And I shit you not. I went, oh my God, that's so crazy. As if I was not there.
Well, did you have your name tag on at this point?
No, I didn't grab a name tag. Like, I was not about to do that.
Okay, so shame coming up,
Shame.
or like, oh, I cannot be connected to that. No way.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I was like, putting myself out there, but no. And so then, like, this girl's like, we could probably steal some of those name tags and like pretend we're there. And I was like,
Oh, so you do want to go?
so yeah, my singles event that you just thought was lame.
Maybe you just didn't want to pay for it.
So fair. I mean, it was like a little bit of a waste of money. I'm not, because you don't get anything. You just like get a name tag.
Mhm.
So then like more people start showing up. Some of the corporate events like start filing out.
Mhm.
And it gets to a place where it's about 100 people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. And like recess is kind of like playground themed. So there's like
Mhm.
games, there's like board games on tables that people can go and talk to.
A good spot to like mingle, and you don't totally have like we love an activity.
Yes.
Love
There was
activity.
so many pros for this. And you could tell something I thought was so interesting just looking at it as like it was for heterosexual couples
Mhm.
is so many women showed up in groups, so many men showed up alone. I'm wondering, like,
I totally believe that.
is there a certain like safety net when you show up with a group of girlfriends? Like, you don't have, I didn't leave my table with my group of girlfriends. At one point, this guy approaches and like, he's good looking. I'm not going to lie.
Mhm.
Tall, all the things that I kind of like in a man.
Mhm.
Comes up to me, goes, so I was just talking with my buddy about how girls with bangs are typically like not that great looking, but you can totally pull them off.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I said,
Maybe you thought that through before
yeah,
saying it out loud, but like, good idea. You were
I
trying.
I think he was trying,
Uh
maybe.
huh.
But I said, thank you, I think. And he goes, nothing to think about. It was a compliment. And I was like,
Okay. Well, maybe we just need to take it for what it was.
yeah. And then, of course, like my sass meter went up a little bit.
Mhm.
I was like, does this ever work for you? And and he was like, is it working now? And I was like, no. And he was
Oh my gosh. This is real time, audience. This is real time reaction.
it's just Lily's real reaction. But like,
Mind you, like, she's not lying. I could totally see you doing this.
say, like, you can see. And then one of our friends was like, oh, this is my friend, blah, blah. And she like introduces him.
Mhm.
And I was like, she was like, he thinks this like is like flirting. And I was like, I think it's like insulting, but like, okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of goes back to that idea of like, if they're sort of making fun of you, they kind of like you, they don't know what to do. Like, I don't know. I feel like everyone would tell each other that in like the early, like, school ages.
elementary school. And here we are at a bar that's like a freaking playground and you're
Exactly.
wanting
all
to pull my
good.
pigtails. And I'm like, oh, no, thank you. So that's when I looked at my friends who were there and I was like, hey, do y'all want to go somewhere else? Like, so we left. And you know what? I woke up the next morning being like, did I give it a fair shot? No. I'm
Mhm.
well aware of that. I showed up, which is great.
Yeah.
I talked to that one guy, didn't love it. And you're right, like that's not made up. I literally like you can totally see me saying that to someone.
Oh, 100%.
Gross, go away. But I do think it was interesting the next day, like recognizing maybe if I had that, like if I had gone up to someone, if I had started a conversation, there would have been a
Mhm.
different outcome. And I think that's how we kind of came up with this idea of like, what does that even look like to put yourself out there in modern
Mhm.
dating? And why is it so scary? And why do we expect people to come up to us? And when they do come up to us and disappoint us a little bit, our gut reaction is like, I'm done, I'm out.
Mhm.
Instead of like, maybe I should go try to talk to someone who might interest me.
Mhm. I feel like and I was not at this event. I've never gone to an event like this. I always say I want to, and I never have. Anyways, there's something to me that I'm thinking about right now is like in an environment like that, I feel like there's a little bit of a net or like a little bit of bubble wrap around us. Because if I go up to someone, they sort of know why I'm going up to them, right? Like there's no unknown here. Like it's pretty like we are at a singles event. If I'm coming up to you, it's probably because I think you're attractive
Yes.
because I don't know anything about these people, but I'm looking at these people. So it's probably something external or Or maybe it's that guy looks like a nice guy. Let me go chat to him, whatever. Right. So I think it can, those situations sometimes I think is like, dip your toes in the water for like kind of getting used to maybe starting the conversation, going up to someone first, because in that event, we kind of know what's going on.
Yes.
And then another thing that's coming up for me when I was going out to bars and like thought people were cute and like wanted to go up and chat with them, I would do what's the worst that could happen? They can tell me that they are in a relationship. That could be true or they could be lying. Do I have to really know if it's true or not? No. They're signaling to me that they are not interested and that hurts, but like I know.
Yeah.
And now I'm just gonna like go back to my girl table or I'm gonna go off to the other guy who I thought was cute or something. I don't know, right? Like I was like, what's the worst that can happen is that it's rejection, but it's also like not to be choosy, but it's redirection because I now know. Like I have the answer. And it's like, okay, I'm not just gonna be sitting over here twiddling my thumbs. How do I go talk to this guy? So I go talk to him. We either have a great conversation, make plans to hang out or whatever it may be, or I get the vibe that he wasn't interested. And I remind myself, he just gave me the vibe that he wasn't interested. How many times have I given a guy a vibe that I wasn't interested? Plenty.
Yeah.
We're both doing it. So it's almost like, how upset can we get if like we've both done it? It just goes back to the piece of you're risking this like vulnerability or this like fear, like all of the things come up on all of the things that we don't really like to name, don't really like to talk about are like literally it's like a magnifying glass in an interaction like that.
Yeah.
Because both people are heightened at the same time trying to interact and everyone's afraid of one person leaving. Or you get that mutual where you're like, this isn't a vibe and you're both kind of like, bye. And then you move on.
It's interesting. Your first point as well. Like, I definitely, something I said to one of my friends that night is like, this is like bowling with the bumper lanes up. Like,
Mhm.
there's an automatic safety net that we know everyone here is single and everyone here, or I would assume.
Exactly.
Yeah. And there's like kind
That
of,
would be a whole other can of worms if people are coming to those events in relationships. But
like there's a comfort level with
Mhm.
that. And also, it's bowling with the bumper lanes up. It's kind of like, this feels like I'm a kid again. Like, it feels like not
Mhm.
like necessarily a failure, but I think that's kind of the inherent shame that's
Okay. Yeah.
is like, maybe you don't feel like you're capable or comfortable doing this in the wild or doing this without some kind of safety net.
Mhm.
Um,
Is there something wrong with that?
no, but I'm wondering where the shame
Mhm.
from, like having to tell your friends you're going to a singles event. Why is that more scary to admit than it is to be like, yeah, I downloaded Hinge again?
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering, like, I think there's a level of vulnerability in it that feels like a spotlight's on you, or feels like you're doing something that's not quote unquote right. Like,
Or I was gonna say, I think, like, the norm right now to put yourself out there is dating apps and Hinge or whatever, and 35 years ago, it was going to, like, blind date, like, speed dating events.
yes.
And, like, those events are kind of starting to make a comeback, like, speed dating events, like the ones that you're talking about are sort of starting to make a comeback, and I think they're kind of on the rise because people are starting to get a little frustrated with the dating apps, and they're like, "What? Like, I'm not seeing anything. No, blah, 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 like, it's not working out." Yes, you get the once in a blue moon, yeah, it's been great, and there's still plenty of success stories, but I think people are starting to move towards what like, events like you're talking about, I really do.
Yeah. And then I think to your second point as well, you were saying, like, what's the worst that can happen type thing. Like, I think something that we've done on this podcast well is, normalize the anxiety, normalize the fear, normalize the overthinking that a lot of people don't want to say the quiet part out loud about how scary
Mhm.
it is to date. But I also think like there's a reframe that has to happen of like self-trust. Like, I can tolerate the worst possible outcome,
Exactly.
tolerate the risk. I
There's
am,
the question, "What's the worst that could happen?" And then there's the answer, "I'll be okay with whatever happens."
yes.
Totally, I agree.
And I think that's the piece of it that, again, like we walk through life, and I speak for women, especially kind of being told we have to have this false confidence. We have to
Mhm.
have it look like it's all together because that's what's expected out of us. And so But in your mind, you're doing the overthinking, you're doing the anxiety, you're doing the fear, like all of that's happening. And that's when you should be able to take a breath and be like, okay, maybe I don't want to be here right now. Like maybe I don't want to put myself out there. Maybe I'm not ready for this because I don't think I can tolerate the worst possible outcome in this stage of life, but I work myself up to it. So I also want to normalize that too. Like if the worst possible outcome feels like death right now, okay.
I've totally been there. Totally been there. 100%.
Yourself that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. We talked a little bit about the sort of what it looks like to put yourself out there when it comes to online dating. I think your first example of like going into those types of events, and then we're kind of shifting a little bit to online dating now. Ultimately, you're putting yourself out there when you're making a profile, when you're creating a profile, when you press live, when you unpause or whatever the things are. It's like that curating versus authentically putting something together. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you feel... And then to be honest, like when I was on Hinge, I definitely put thought into it. I definitely sent some photos to my friends. Which one do you think should go first? How's my ratio? Solos versus groups? Do my prompts like sufficiently sum up how like fun, spunky, and nerdy I am or whatever? I don't know, right? Like, and it's also just like, how did I just pick those words? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so interesting. Like, what are we trying to get across? But then at the other point, I do think it's important, just like you're writing a paper, you're like, who's your audience?
Yes.
And like, I think you think like that when you're creating your Hinge, because yes, I can go in there and just write a profile that inherently is so me. But I also can think about, okay, how is it so me? And like, how is this going to land for others? Like, is this a good connecting point? Like, do I want this to be like a banter point or a starting point or whatever it may be? So I don't know. I don't love the word curate. I don't know. I think there can be a middle ground. I do. I think that it does take some, because let's be honest, if you're going one word answers, like on the prompts, I feel like you're not fully there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I recently went into, I know we talked about this in the online dating episode, deleted my Hinge. It's not paused. It's fully deleted as per usual. Because like I don't even want this near me.
Yeah.
But I think like a few months ago I sent you like a video recording, like a screen recording of my profile, and I was like, is this cute? Like I think that that's normal. Like a certain level of curating is so natural. I think the
Especially for our age group, I think, as well.
Yes.
We've been doing it for so long.
Social media was like the birth of our, like, yes, Facebook and MySpace and everything, but like more so our generation, like Instagram, like a highlight reel.
Aesthetic.
Yeah.
Aesthetic was like the word, or artsy. Like it needed to be aesthetic or artsy.
Yes. Yes. One of my proudest Hinge prompt things it was like, all I ask is that you, and I send me a picture of your dad so I know how you're going to age. And that got a lot of responses because people were like, oh, she's funny. But then I was like, but I also am like, that's so a different side of me as well, you know? But anyways, I think the line becomes when it's about performance. Like you're wanting to perform well. Like you're wanting to it's one thing to want people to respond to you. It's another for you to be disappointed by like numbers, to be disappointed by how many people are responding to you, to be like who's responding to you, changing it all the time, like feeling like you're having to.
It's like a game, kind of like what does well, what performs well.
Yes. Yes. When it starts to look more like a playbook and less like profile, I think that's when it's curation over authenticity.
Totally. And ultimately, and maybe this feels a little bit, I'm finding so many like connections to like writing a paper with Hinge right now. I don't know. But like ultimately you do kind of want to like grab someone's attention. Like you want kind of a thing that's going to like stick out. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. And then I'm coming back to the thing that they teach you in kindergarten, like don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. Like,
I mean, that's why it's so hard. Like ultimately you guys also aren't communicating. Like you're not on Hinge. You're not like getting to know each other. Like, yeah, it's wild.
It's also about what's on the inside and like what after someone responds to you and you like start up a chat, are you still acting out of the performance mode of what your profile is putting out there? Or are you acting out of who you are? Which I then think kind of comes back to what Sarah talked about on our last episode that we did with her.
Shifting, sort of.
thing. The mask is always going to fall. Like, eventually, the most real version of you is going to need to come through. It's just, do you even know the most real version of you? I don't know. And I think there's so much to go on here, and like so much about putting yourself out there, so much about, just the modern dating landscape that we're in these days. But too, like, I think there's a certain level of hurt that comes from putting yourself out there on a dating app and then getting rejected, because it's like, you didn't even get to know me fully. You just looked at me pictures and chatted with me and then decided it wasn't worth it.
And a response can be, okay, similar to a response that you had, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Stopping. I'm pausing. I'm deleting. I'm doing all of the things, and I'm taking a full-blown break.
Yes.
And sometimes that's maybe what is going to work for someone in that moment. But I think it's important to point out that we have these responses, and sometimes we just have these responses and we don't even note that we're doing them. So like to come back to the moment, could ground yourself and be like, whoa, I was just so overwhelmed, or like maybe hurt, or that rejection kind of happened. I didn't even know that person, but I like threw my phone against the wall and like deleted Hinge.
When we were researching for this episode, something that I found so interesting, I wrote it down, was that ghosting and rejection activates the brain's pain center so similarly to physical pain. So it feels intense because it is intense. Like our brain is telling us it's intense. Like it's like a heartache. It's like getting punched in the gut or slapped across the face. Like those instant, like, oh my God, pain receptors is what's happening because it's emotionally happening to you. So like, the deleting Hinge, throwing your phone across the room, like doing all the things, like that's valid too. Like I just want women to know, especially like when you put yourself out there and then you face rejection, like it does hurt. You're allowed to hurt by that.
And again, I always say I want to stay away from the cliches, but there will be a time where you put yourself out there and it may feel scary, but it's like scary in an exciting way. Or it may feel like, oh my gosh, like this person is, my mask is coming down. This person is starting to see me. I need to tell them that I told them that I could ski when we were first texting, but I actually don't know how to ski. I've done that before.
Say that sounds like some personal experience.
I've totally done that before. Why is that the most vulnerable thing I've said on this podcast?
Can we say that? Why skiing? Like, why was that like, I can
use the profiles, at least of the guys that I see are like ski or snowboard. And I'm like, ski. And I'm like, wait, neither.
I'm dead. That is hilarious.
But like, that's a mask. Like, what? But then I was like, okay, then I'll like tell him once we're on like our 5th date and he likes me.
Hey, by the way, I can't ski.
Okay, we don't need to sit here for that long, but
that got me. That was one of those moments.
But I don't know. I do think that, and then we've talked about this a little bit too, but it's like, is it like a good fear or is it a bad fear? And I don't know if those are the words that I want to use, but is it like an exciting fear or a debilitating fear? Like I think you get to a point in a relationship, in an early stage relationship, when you start to like be like, oh wait, I'm like feeling this, but I don't think it's like how I felt in the last relationship when I was really scared or felt rejected or this or that. And you kind of like, I think you can get to a point when you're like, wait, it feels similar, but it's not entirely the same. And then being curious about that. And then I think slowly, at least something like in my experience, slowly you kind of start to realize and you're like, oh, wait, like I don't need to be like, and I can be like, yeah. So.
And I think that's like the component that we've talked about so many times, like just like this curiosity of yourself, listening to your body, exploring maybe some tendencies that you might have. What does safety feel like? What does fear feel like? What does being activated feel like? And being realistic about that, because like this guy coming up to me and was there a moment where I was like, I'm at a singles event, there's a lot of pretty girls, and this guy came up to me, like this is so exciting.
He chose me, yeah.
And then he opened his mouth and I was like, okay, first of all, I think my bangs are adorable. So
I love your bangs.
So it was just like this moment of part of me, of course, wanted to be like, haha, like that's so funny. But I listened to the real part of me who was like, if I want a connection, it's not going to be out of like a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah. And so I think those are the kind of cues that once we start doing the work on ourselves and once we start knowing, like putting ourselves out there, that whole risk and reward become more clear because we
I
know
do
it.
like what you were saying around listening to your body, though, and
Mhm.
like sort of like paying attention to those cues. Because I think at an event like this, maybe leading up to the event like this, you are going so fast. You are not thinking about anything. You're kind of tunnel vision, head is down, convincing yourself to go into it. So you're gonna like these feelings of anxiety, these feelings of like, this doesn't feel great. I'm kind of breathing heavy. My palms are a little sweaty. Like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but it might not always be that way. So
Yeah.
slow down enough to realize when maybe you aren't feeling some of that stuff or when you kind of, for me, I like can vividly remember on like in past relationships, on past dates, when I kind of just remember being like, okay, wait, my jaw is like not clenched.
Yeah.
I'm sitting up straight, but like in a way where I'm not too performative, but I'm like relaxed because I still want to sit up straight, but I don't want to be like this. And I'm still, or like my hands aren't like comfortably put like squeezing together and I can just like, I don't know. For me, I think that's when my body tells me first before my mind,
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
100%. And I didn't know that until I started going to therapy for sure.
That is something I've really started, I don't a few weeks, maybe honestly, maybe it was before the singles event. I posted something on our TikTok that was like ways to regulate your body before a
Mhm.
first date. And a lot of them are tips and tricks that I use, but also ones I would recommend to clients because something I've started doing is like a lot of somatic work with clients who
Mhm.
can tell me how they feel, which is great, but are emotionalists as they're telling me how they feel. So, like, it's like mentally they think they know, but they're not connected to it. And so there's like
Mhm.
that work that has to be done so that when they're regulated, they know when they're triggered instead of being triggered all the time. Or when they're numb, they're preventing themselves from knowing what might be triggering. So I really do think like the book, Your Body Keeps a Score. Like your body knows how you are initially feel. And a lot of times it's going to be your first sign. And so that regulation is so important. And in terms of like putting yourself out there, it's okay if you get a little
Mhm.
palm sweat or if you were a little shaky before approaching someone at a bar or a
Mhm.
restaurant or out with friends.
Mhm.
When it's to the point where like you can't breathe, there's a weight on your chest, there's a pressure,
Mhm.
reevaluate. Like,
Mhm.
figure out what's telling you that. That a learned non-truth that you hold of like, I'm not
Mhm.
worthy to approach this person? Is it a fear of rejection because that's an attachment wound you have from a previous relationship? Is
Mhm.
it trauma? Is
Mhm.
it like, what is it and where is it coming from? But yeah, there's a work of connecting yourself to your own body and kind of making sure there's a flow from body, soul, and mind.
Mhm.
I think that's like really important, especially for women, because we are always told to put masks on to
Totally.
cultivate this false confidence.
Yeah. Okay. I think we should end on thinking back to a moment
Mm.
where we successfully put ourselves out there. Or maybe it was a learning curve, or maybe not successfully. I don't know if I love that word, but an experience of attempting or putting ourselves out there. I need to think for a second.
I have mine.
Okay.
One of the best dates I ever went on was a blind date. It was a blind double date. So like I knew someone who was going to be there, but didn't know who she was connecting me to.
Mhm.
He's wonderful. Him and his girlfriend are very happy right now. So, like, clearly didn't work out between us. But there was this moment where I, like, remember being on the train and being like, "This is terrifying. Like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be stuck with this other couple. So,
Mhm.
if this goes poorly between the 2 of us, like, there is no real escape." We were going to a Cubs game, so I was like, "There's at least"
Long. Yeah.
yeah, 9 innings where I had to, like, make conversation with this person. And I called
Mhm.
my sister before, and I remember just being like, "I think I'm gonna cancel. Like, I'm on my way right now, but, like, I think I might just say delays, I'm not feeling good, something."
Mhm.
And it was like, what it was one of those moments, what's the worst that could happen? Like,
Mhm.
you guys don't vibe and you hang out with your friend or, like, you make conversation, like, you can
Why does that hearing that from someone else, I literally can be like, "Oh my god, you're so right."
it's something your brain cannot tell you in those moments where you're heightened. So,
Mhm.
like, someone else saying it to you is so soothing. Because I think
Well, I guess that's a takeaway. It's like when you're feeling these things, reach out to the roommate, reach out to the friend, call someone on the way there. Like that doesn't mean that you're weak. That
Yeah.
does like there's no rule book saying that you can't do that. I have texted, FaceTime, called, voice memoed on ways to dates all the time
All the time.
because and like maybe that's distraction, maybe it's a good way of distraction, maybe it's that person being like, "Wait, no, you're hot, beautiful, smart. What's the worst that can happen? You're getting a potentially a free meal or a free drink out of this, and then you're on your way home. You maybe see him the next week if you want to."
I've literally gotten to a restaurant early, sat at the bar, and told the bartender, "I'm nervous. I'm about to be on a first date. Like, can I signal you if something's going on?"
And then you're like, "Okay," and you're back, and you're like, "This is life, and it's all gonna be okay."
Yes.
I
Yeah,
like
that double date. It was honestly so fun. He's amazing. I hope he's living his best life with his girlfriend. But like we had a fun time and I let so much of the pressure go and we're like friends. So like it ended up being great.
Awesome. I love that for you. Trying to think about mine. I think this might pull into some other things, but my dad set me up with someone. I think you know about this.
It was last Christmas.
Yes. My dad set me up with someone. I invited him to a Christmas party that I was having at my apartment. I guess that was the first time we met, but I don't really want to refer to that time. I'm going to refer to the first date that we had after it was like not 75 people in my apartment or whatever. I was terrified,
Mm.
absolutely terrified, which I would always tell this to my friends and to my roommates. I'm like, I don't get like this. Like I was like, why? I was like, before games, before performances, before job interviews, before presentations, before like all of these things that I normally like have these feelings. Or if I'm out with friends and I'm with other people, if I went to that event with you, know myself to the extent well, I would have asked you, who do you think is like attractive? And I would have gone up to them and be like, hey, come to our table. I did that last weekend with one of my friends. Like, yeah, that's the funny thing. If it's for other people, not necessarily if it's for myself, but I am that girl to put myself out there. So I think when I was like waiting for this guy from the Christmas party to pick me up, I was like, wait, no, it's like just going to be me and him. And that was so much to me. Like, I experienced one of my first full on like panic attacks. Like, the whole talk about body, my body was telling me no. It maybe would have been, it was maybe to the extent of maybe I like shouldn't gone on the date, but I kind of like regulated, had my ice cube in my hand, and I was like, we're on our way. It ultimately went, I'm glad that I went there. I learned a lot about myself, but that was one of the moments where I learned a lot about my body, though. And also on the date, my body language was not it. Like, I don't know if I just was unavailable, if we weren't vibing. I don't know what the vibe was, but like, I was uncomfortable. My whole body was just like not feeling it. And it was validating. But I think there's times in my life when I maybe would have done that and would have been like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like, why was I like that? Like, why couldn't I just like enjoy? Like, it's a first date. It's not that big of a deal, Lily. But I think I was at a point in my life where I was like, okay, like maybe that wasn't it. Like, I wasn't feeling great and that's okay. And like, I'm glad I went. I learned from it. And like, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go to bed. And then tomorrow's going to be another day and it's all still going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what to take from that is, but
The success story is almost that you were able to like listen to yourself and like trust
Mhm.
yourself
Totally.
and not necessarily for something that wasn't there.
Exactly. Which
Right.
I think brings us back to our kind of always our sort of like launching pad of a moment of it's all about getting to a point where you can just listen to yourself, allowing yourself to give yourself the time and the space, slowing down. That's something for like slow down needs to be written across my forehead in
Yeah.
all of different colors of inks because I just need that because it's so easy for me to just keep on going. But I recognize when I give myself the time and the space, I just feel so much more at ease and so much more connected to my body and to my mind. And I think ultimately, when it comes to anxiety, overthinking, that kind of stuff, it's like, it's just that deep breath. It's that reconnection. It's that whatever you do for yourself, it can be anything. It can be throwing in a piece of gum or a mint, or it can be like calling a friend, or it can be, I love to lay down on the floor. It can be laying down on the floor. It can be cuddling up with your stuffed animal. It can be whatever you do that just like allows you to give yourself a second. I think is always just it's like, do that thing, and then go from there.
Yeah. And I think to add on to, like, not to sound like a total therapist, no matter what, but even when you feel unsure, even when you feel dysregulated, even when you feel anxious or fearful or scared that you're putting yourself out there, you're still worthy of connection. You're still worthy of a really great, wonderful, big love story. And I think one of the first steps is like having that love story with yourself and knowing yourself.
Also recognizing that everyone else is probably feeling a lot of the same stuff too.
Exactly. It's something that should be so normalized, these just like dating fears. But yeah, I think everyone dates a little bit with an anxious mind.
It's like objectively very scary.
Yes. Yeah.
What?
And you know what? There are singles events. Try them out. Don't listen to the judgment of other people. Also, if you want to go home, go home.
Exactly. It can be all of the above. But I would be interested if any listeners have any comments or stories or anything that they kind of want to share. It's a lot of us chatting. And if we can bring in anything from our listeners, I think it would be fun to kind of read some comments, chat about things. I believe there's a Google.
There is a form in our show notes and on our website. So feel free to go click that. Everything's anonymous. Feel free to tell your story, your dating icks, your dating cringes, dating horror stories, dating success stories, times where you were able to trust your body, anything and everything. We'd love to hear it.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
Guys.
Bye, everyone.